Have you ever walked into a room only to find that it never existed? Reports of vanishing rooms are increasing worldwide, entire spaces disappearing, leaving behind no trace of their existence. Victims claim they once lived in them, worked in them, or even hid inside them. But when they return, it's as if the room was never there. How is this possible? Experts are now revealing terrifying theories that will make you question reality itself. Imagine waking up one morning to find that something in your home is wrong. The furniture is slightly out of place, the walls feel narrower, and a door that has always led to your bedroom now opens into a blank wall. At first, you convince yourself it's a dream, a trick of the mind. But as the hours pass, the unease grows. The room you slept in last night no longer exists. This isn't just a horror story. Over the years, countless people have reported unexplainable disappearances of entire rooms, hallways, or even entire buildings. And while skeptics claim these accounts are simple cases of misremembering, some scientists and theorists have suggested a far more terrifying explanation: dimensional shifts. The science of parallel dimensions. For decades, physicists have debated the existence of parallel universes, alternate realities that exist alongside our own, separated by the thinnest of veils. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that every decision, every event, creates a branching timeline, splitting reality into infinite possibilities. But what if those realities weren't entirely separate? What if, in instance, they overlap? Some researchers feel that certain locations, specific points in space, could act as weak spots in the fabric of reality. These are places where two dimensions come close enough to touch, and when they do, things slip through. A room that exists in one version of reality may momentarily shift into another, disappearing from our world entirely. The case of the disappearing hotel room in 1979, a British couple traveling through France checked into a small, charming hotel for the night. The room was old-fashioned but cozy, decorated with antique furnishings and heavy drapes. They spent the night peacefully, slept well, and even had breakfast in the quaint dining hall before checking out. Days later, they decided to return to the hotel. But when they arrived at the same location, the building was gone. Not abandoned, not destroyed. It had never been there. Locals swore that no such hotel had ever existed at that spot. The couple searched records, newspapers, and maps. There was no sign of the hotel, no evidence that they had ever stayed there. Even their photographs from that night showed only an empty field where the hotel should have been. Had they somehow stepped into another version of reality, one where the hotel still stood, but only for a fleeting moment? Could buildings be slipping through dimensions? Some physicists speculate that certain structures might exist on the boundary between realities. Most of the time, these buildings stay anchored in our dimension. But under the right conditions, a shift in energy, a disruption in quantum states, or even unknowable cosmic forces, they could momentarily phase into another timeline. Imagine you're walking down a familiar street when you suddenly notice a door you've never seen before. You step inside, find yourself in a beautifully furnished room, but when you turn around, the door is gone. The air feels strange. The walls seem thinner. If you left at that moment, you might be safe. But if you stayed too long, you might become trapped on the other side, in a world that isn't yours. Disappearing people. The ultimate shift. It's not just rooms and buildings that vanish. In some cases, people themselves seem to slip through dimensions. One of the most chilling cases occurred in 1880 when a Tennessee farmer named David Lang vanished mid-stride while walking across his field. His wife and children watched in horror as he simply blinked out of existence. No sound, no struggle, just gone. Despite extensive searches, no trace of him was ever found. No footprints, no signs of abduction. But months later, his children swore they could still hear his faint cries calling for help, whispers from a place they could no longer see. Was he trapped between worlds? Did he accidentally step through a dimensional rift? A warning to the curious. If dimensional shifts are real, then reality isn't as stable as we believe. The walls that separate our world from another might be thinner in some places, waiting for the right moment to dissolve. Maybe that's why some rooms disappear overnight, or why some doors lead to places they shouldn't. And maybe, just maybe, if you step into the wrong space at the wrong time, you might never find your way back. What if some buildings were never meant to be understood? What if certain doors, certain rooms, certain entire structures were built for something other than human use? Throughout history, there have been reports of rooms that disappear overnight, hallways that lead to nowhere, and architectural blueprints that don't match the physical world. Some believe these are design flaws or forgotten renovations, but others suspect something far more disturbing: hidden, shifting structures built for unknown purposes. This is the terrifying mystery of the architecture of the unseen, the phantom. Room phenomenon. In 2003, a woman named Valerie moved into an old apartment complex in Boston. The building was historic, with winding hallways and strangely placed staircases, but she loved its character. One night, while exploring, she discovered a door she had never noticed before. It was at the end of a dimly lit hallway, slightly ajar, revealing a small dust-covered room. Inside, there was only a chair, a table, and a single window that overlooked nothing. She didn't think much of it at the time until the next morning, when she returned to show her boyfriend the door was gone. Not locked, not blocked, gone. The wall was seamless, with no sign that a door had ever been there. When she asked the landlord, he simply shook his head. There was never a door there, he said. You must have imagined it, but Valerie knew what she had seen. And she wasn't alone. Other tenants had reported similar experiences: doors that appeared and disappeared, staircases that led to nowhere, windows that overlooked empty voids. What was happening in that building? And more importantly, who had built it that way? The secret language of architecture. Some theorists believe that certain buildings are constructed with deliberate distortions, designed to obscure hidden rooms and passageways. These aren't just forgotten blueprints or construction errors. They are intentional designs that follow rules we don't understand. In the world of sacred architecture, ancient civilizations built structures with hidden meanings. The pyramids of Egypt, Gothic cathedrals, and even modern skyscrapers are rumored to contain secret symbols, lost corridors, and hidden chambers. But what if some of these spaces weren't meant for us? Architectural anomalies, hallways that loop endlessly, staircases that descend into nothing, rooms that don't exist on any blueprint, may be designed for entities we cannot perceive. Spaces that only reveal themselves under specific conditions. Have you ever walked into a building and felt that something was wrong? That a room felt too big or too small for the space it occupied? That a door shouldn't exist, yet somehow it does? Perhaps you weren't imagining it. Perhaps you were standing inside a structure that had been altered, rewritten, or unfinished by unseen hands. The case of the Winchester Mystery House. One of the most famous examples of impossible architecture is the Winchester Mystery House in California. Built by Sarah Winchester, the widow of the gun magnate William Winchester, the mansion is a labyrinth of staircases that lead nowhere, doors that open into walls, and rooms that appear and vanish. Sarah reportedly believed that she was haunted by the ghosts of those killed by Winchester rifles, and she continued building onto her home non-stop for 38 years in an effort to confuse the spirits. But some theorists suggest something else was at play. What if Sarah wasn't just building for the dead, but for something else? What if the confusing layout wasn't meant to keep spirits out, but to trap something inside? The idea that buildings can act as prisons, conduits, or even portals is not new. Some theorists suggest that certain vanished rooms aren't gone. They've simply been sealed away, locked behind dimensions or frequencies that we don't have access to anymore. Perhaps these rooms weren't meant to be found, or worse, perhaps they were never meant to be entered. Why do some rooms disappear? Why do some rooms? If hidden architecture is real, why do some rooms vanish? Experts in paranormal architecture suggest three possible explanations. They were never meant for humans. Some spaces might exist only temporarily, opening and closing according to rules we don't understand. These could be rooms that shift between dimensions, designed for something that operates on a different plane of reality. They are self-correcting anomalies. Sometimes, mistakes happen, even in reality itself. A room that wasn't supposed to exist appears, and when it's noticed, the system corrects itself, making it disappear again. They are designed to disappear. What if some buildings aren't static? What if their architecture shifts deliberately, moving pieces like a puzzle? The same way ancient temples had hidden chambers for rituals, modern buildings may have spaces that open only at specific times, under specific conditions. If that's true, then the question isn't just where these rooms go when they disappear. It's who or what designed them to vanish in the first place. Final warning, never open the wrong door. If you've ever been inside a building that felt off, if you've ever seen a door that you swore wasn't there before, think carefully before stepping inside, because some rooms don't belong in this world, and once you enter one, you might not come back. Some places were never built by human hands. Some rooms, those that appear and disappear overnight, those that seem misplaced or wrong, are not construction errors, but deliberate creations by something beyond our comprehension. What if the vanishing rooms we fear aren't accidents? What if they are being built, erased, and rewritten by forces we will never understand? This is the work of the unknowable, the impossible room that shouldn't exist. In 1987, a university professor in Prague was granted access to an old, abandoned wing of his school's library. The section had been locked for decades, sealed off, due to renovations that were never completed. When he stepped inside, he found something strange. A small study room, dust-covered but completely furnished. Books lined the walls, a wooden desk sat in the center, and a single dim lamp glowed eerily, as if someone had just lit it. He left to inform the staff, but when they returned an hour later, the room was gone. Not just empty, not just closed, off, with no lamp existing. The hallway was now a dead end, lined with bricks that looked centuries old. The university's blueprints had no record of the room. No one could explain its presence or its disappearance. Who had built it? More importantly, who had erased it? The theory of the hidden architects. Some researchers believe that certain structures aren't human creations. Ancient legends tell of beings who build in secret, entities that construct rooms, staircases, and entire buildings according to rules we cannot grasp. These structures don't always appear in one place permanently. They shift, move, and sometimes they disappear altogether. Some believe that these hidden architects work in plain sight, modifying reality itself. Maybe they operate in ways we can't perceive, altering the physical world without our knowledge. If that's true, then vanishing rooms aren't mistakes. They are deliberate corrections. What happens if you step inside one? Do you interrupt something? Do you risk being removed, just like the room itself? Buildings that shouldn't be there. There are countless stories of mysterious buildings that exist briefly before vanishing without a trace. The Phantom Hotel. In 1971, a family driving through France found a charming, old-fashioned hotel. They stayed the night, had breakfast, and left. But when they tried to return, the hotel no longer existed. Every road, every sign leading to it, gone. The Vanishing House in London. A man swore he saw an unfamiliar townhouse appear overnight in his neighborhood. When he tried to approach it, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The next morning, the house was gone. Not abandoned, gone. No foundation, no record of its existence. These buildings may be temporary constructs appearing only when needed. But for whom? And why do they sometimes consume the people inside? Some researchers speculate that the universe itself is unfinished, constantly being modified, just like software receiving updates. What if every now and then we witness a part of this reality update? A room appearing for a brief moment before it was erased. If this is true, then what we call vanishing rooms may simply be glitches, spaces that exist only briefly before being rewritten into something else. But here's the terrifying part. If entire rooms can disappear, what's stopping something larger from vanishing? What if someday an entire city is rewritten overnight? Would we even remember it was ever there? A lesser-known but chilling theory suggests that some vanishing rooms are not empty. A few survivors claim that when they stepped into these mysterious spaces, they heard whispering, not in any language they understood, not in any direction they could pinpoint. The voices surrounded them, coming from the walls, from the ceiling, from the very air itself. One woman, after stumbling into a room that shouldn't exist in her office building, described hearing something shifting inside the walls. Something scratching, building, rearranging. She ran. By the time she returned with a coworker, the room was gone. Had she interrupted something? Had she seen something unfinished? What would have happened if she had stayed just a little longer? Would she have vanished with it? The next time you find a door you don't remember, a hallway that feels longer than it should be, or a room that seems wrong, remember this. Some places aren't meant to exist, and if you step inside, you might find yourself inside a creation that was never meant for human eyes. If that happens, leave immediately, because if you stay too long, you might never find the exit. So what do you think? Are these vanishing rooms, glitches in reality, hidden architectural secrets, or is something much darker at play? Let us know in the comments, but be careful. If you ever find yourself standing in a place that feels just a little too unfamiliar, a little too out of sync, you might want to leave before it's too late, because some rooms aren't meant to be found.